This man tied his boss to a chair and whipped him mercilessly. The man's name was Mark. Mark had been waiting outside for a long time that day. Finally, he saw Annie, his best friend, leaving work. Mark's mental state seemed to be in terrible shape. He wanted to ask Annie for help, but she was in a rush to get home and cook for her kids. She didn't have time to talk to him right then, so she promised they'd talk another day. That evening, Annie was telling stories to her kids when Mark's mother urgently came over to find her. She said that Mark seemed to have lost his mind and was planning to kill his boss. Annie immediately rushed over. When she arrived, she saw Mark had his boss tied to a chair, whipping him viciously. Annie quickly tried to stop Mark, urging him to calm down and not do anything illegal. But Mark, who was emotionally out of control, refused to listen. Instead, he continued to lash out at his boss, venting his frustration. He even shouted at his mother, asking why she didn't help him when she knew his boss had been withholding his wages. Why, he demanded, had she sided with his boss and let him be treated this way? Mark poured out his anger, recounting all the awful things his cruel boss had done. Afterward, he poured gasoline all over his boss, who was still sitting in the chair. Annie rushed over to stop him, but Mark, completely irrational, pulled her aside and angrily asked why she hadn't helped him earlier. Then, without warning, he took out a lighter and set his boss on fire. Annie tried to intervene and save the man, but Mark pinned her to the ground. She could only watch in horror as the flames consumed the boss, who was helplessly tied to the chair. Annie was terrified by what she had witnessed. The police arrived soon after and took Mark away. Annie felt an overwhelming sense of regret. If only she had listened to Mark earlier that day, maybe this tragedy wouldn't have happened.